Merry Christmas. On this Christmas Eve, I want to spend a moment exploring the incredible impact of Judaism and Christianity and the values those religions have spawned on our society and the transformation that they have largely brought about. As I thought about how to point this out and how to articulate it, I was thinking of the three events of this century, of the last century, thank God, that stand out in stark contrast to the rest of our lives and our civilization. Pearl Harbor, the 9/11 attacks, and the wartime Holocaust. Clearly those are the three great failures of humanity and the three great sins against our values that have been committed. And each of them were committed essentially by actors who were not part of the Judeo-Christian tradition, or at least certainly didn't follow it. I'll start with Pearl Harbor. Japan had historically started all of its wars with a surprise attack, and there's no moral negative from a surprise attack. The idea of attacking someone who's not suspecting it and not on guard seemed like a smart thing to do to the warlords in Japan rather. It didn't seem as particularly barbaric. It was within what one does in warfare. It was a strategic masterstroke. Yet it offended our values so dramatically and led to the incredible backlash against Japan and Germany that followed Pearl Harbor. It invigorated our effort all the way through the war, particularly in the Pacific. And it was not just that we lost 3,000 soldiers. It was that it was a completely unprovoked surprise attack while they were telling us they were negotiating for peace. We never got over that. And I believe that in the Christian and Judaic heritage, that kind of conduct earned a special kind of reprobation that it doesn't necessarily earn in other cultures. The other example, of course, is 9/11, where an explicitly anti-Jewish and anti-Christian force incinerated 3,000 innocent civilians in terrorism, not as part of a war, not as part of a global strategy like a bombing of a city in the middle of a war, but as a totally unprovoked attack against civilians designed to cause maximum death and maximum damage. That's another example of something that would not be sanctioned by the Judeo-Christian ethic. Now, I know all about Dresden, and I know all about the fire bombings of Japanese villages and of German cities during the war. But that's just it. It was during the war. It was one of a long series of actions designed to weaken the enemy will and win a war. 9/11 was not. It was an act of terror and violence and hatred that is completely alien to our values and our system. And the third was the Holocaust. The Nazi ideology was predicated in large part on Nietzsche's ideology, which basically held that God was dead, that the whole value structure that had been conceived by Jews and by Christians and imposed on the Western world was no longer operable, that it was live and let live, it was catch as catch can, it was the strong must prevail, it was a form of Darwinian ethics, Darwinian religion, in which right and wrong meant very little, values meant nothing, and charity was for weak people. Ted Turner once said, Christianity is for losers. Well, he was completely right. It is for losers, and we're all losers, and Christianity recognizes that. And I think that in these three episodes, we really can see the quantum of value that religion and these great religious ideas have brought to us, and how they separate us from those that don't have them. Thanks for watching.